This is one of the top buildings in the United States. This is a world-class building.
When the public is on the first floor and looking up into the beautiful rotunda, they're not seeing the issues that I see when I do the same thing. At some point, they will.
When you get up to the 5th, 6th, and 7th levels, you start seeing the damage that the environment, the dust, the lighting has all done to it over the years. You need to really think about this intently and how are you going to solve this problem? This restoration is making history of how to treat this building.
It's monumental, and it's worthy of the people of Michigan.
You have to protect this building.
This is deluxe scaffold. I feel very safe, I feel very comfortable. It's a piece of art in itself.
With the computers that we have now, they can run simulations on it. We can look where tight points are and build it in a 3D virtual world before we ever put it up, because that safety then ties into productivity.
It's deluxe, I would say. Yes. It's like there's no fear at all.
I'm used to having to do a lot of climbing up and down ladders.
When you're on a straight up ladder, when you get higher, you have the feeling like the ladder is leaning out this way, and you can't look down, you just have to look up.
We have stairs. We have an elevator for equipment. It's definitely one of the best scaffolding setups I've ever seen, especially where they put the outriggers up into the windows for us. Oh, that's nice. It's a little less mountain climbing.
I don't think anyone would believe that almost every surface they're looking at is a decorative finish.
No detail was left unconsidered by the Victorians, in part because the Victorians had an incredible formula for decorating. They understood that the whole room was a composition. That translates into large buildings like we have here.
9 acres of surface area that has been painted and decorated in the Victorian style, in particular the aesthetic movement style.
It is overwhelming when you think of Capitol Square proper, from Capitol Avenue to Walnut, from Ottawa to Allegan, and that's just over 9.5 acres of land. And as you try to imagine a person hand painting that puts it in perspective for me. It's 144 years old at this point. It isn't easy to maintain. It isn't easy to put it back together. You need to look at things really closely and behind the scenes.
It wasn't bad when you looked at it from a distance. Now, when we got the scaffolding up and we came in and we looked at it, we could really see up close a lot of damage and peeling away in certain areas, especially on the pilasters and the ribs, where everything from what I call it crazing, it's like a crackling, to actual peeling up and loosening of the paint.
In particular, the 5th and 6th floors, if you will, there are significant paint losses and delamination. It's very dirty, of 30 years of accumulation of dust and air pollution and so on and so forth. And those surfaces, the average person does not know, that is all pressed metal. Tin.
Tin, for example, will oxidize, so that can change the color of the paint.
When we look at those finishes, when we're diagnosing the various conditions that we're seeing on the surface, there's a lot more that goes into why they're occurring.
The ugly stuff is one of the reasons that we had to get back up here and do it. Filtration in our HVAC systems, humidification, temperature variances, beta rays and UV rays that are coming through the windows.
You have to understand the physical materials of it. You have to understand how each piece is connected to one another. You have to understand all those back-of-house systems.
This building, the Michigan State Capitol, does not have a proper vapor barrier. nor does it have expansion joints.
Michigan's a pretty tough environment, and given our seasons and hot, cold, so thermal, the snow loads, the frost, the rain, and everything that we have.
You have both the heat from the outside, from the sun beating down on the roof of the dome. You have the heat from the building itself that rises up through the dome.
There can be a 50-degree differential on the surface temperature of the decorative surfaces up there. It expands. The paint may not expand and contract at the same rate. Therefore, the paint spalls, the paint delaminates, and it starts popping away from the surface that it sits on.
We saw some of that actually through here where there were some paint craters that had peeled off and paint had just been put directly over top of the tin, and that bluish oxidation comes through and changes the color. So from about the 4th floor up, we're dealing with metal, so everywhere that we've had to do repairs, we're not working with plaster or drywall repairs, we're using Bondo.
We went along with a strong flashlight or lights and put it close to the edge of the painting and have the light raking across the surface. So that really reveals the damages very easily for us.
There are some that have like the discolored overpaint, and that is an issue, but it's not even on all of them. So maybe half of them have some serious problems with flaking and overpaint, but half of them are in really stable condition.
So for example, if there was an area of flaking in here, we would basically mark out that area lightly with a chalk to identify it. Basically, we've made maps, and those are actually transferred digitally onto images of the painting. So there's a record also for the future. They know what we dealt with in terms of present condition, and then when they come back in 40, 50 years, they'll be able to see if there's issues happening somewhere else, or is it the same area that's creating a problem.
The documentation of this project was paramount. We think that when it finished in 1990 the first time, they did a pretty good job of documenting. But with technology and the way it's advanced, we knew that we could do it better.
That restoration was a link from the past to the then anticipated new millennium and this present day. And the work that we are doing in maintenance, restoration, and conservation today is a link from the present until the future.
We have a mantra we use on our staff that's called, we don't settle for good enough. We want to go from good to great. So that great bar is where our standard is. And it's because when this building was built, Elijah Meyer set the standard and set the bar that high. So now it's our goal as stewards to maintain this building to that level.
The best form of conservation is maintenance.
I really feel that the collaboration that we've had, the understanding that they have of conservation and of taking care of the building and being building stewards has just made this a really amazing process.
It's total teamwork. Everybody is bringing a certain degree of knowledge and expertise. For example, the staff on the building here.
They are an incredible group to work with because they care about the building. They trust the people that work for them.
They respect the lowly craftsman all the way up to the PhD architect. And the fact that they could put us all in the room at the same table and put us on the same level is really unique.
BCA comes into the picture. They're doing a lot of management and decision making, but they're also doing things like taking samples out so that we can discover what is the true historic color. So they come from it from the conservator's point of view and doing a bit of chemistry there. And for canning, we are trained conservators and decorative painters.
Even when you're thinking about things like, a stencil, they have a guide, well, that's simple, but it's not. Everything they do, you may start with a stencil as a guide, but everything is gone over by hand.
We do almost every bit of it with artist brushes. And you go round and round and round. And you keep going until you don't see any more flaws.
We are retaining as much of the original fabric as absolutely possible. We're stabilizing it. We're stewards of the craftsmanship. That's really important to us. It's not a canning job. No, it's a job from 1879.
Collaboration is everything. It's made this thing one hell of a successful project. I mean, I can't help but scream for joy and celebrate.